Do what?
Fix go next
Like
time.
right now.
Hey, whatever.
Feet, hands to move in different directions.
You're two in a quiet room, I take
Rhythms
it.
down, been going for about 2
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of get things rolling, let this conversation start. No. I thank y'all for all coming here. I kind of called this meeting kind of together because, in my role, I see a lot and I hear a lot. And I mean, we all know there is a drug problem going around. We all know that, youth activities are having issues. And I kind of was like sitting there, you hear people go, something needs to be done. We need to do something. What can we do? And I was sitting there thinking, what can I do as a provider in our community to help the health of it? And one is getting people together with bigger minds than mine. So I consider y'all having bigger minds than me. But really getting people all within influential roles
And he laughs as he said that. Did y'all notice that? I just want y'all to hear that.
No, but really, we all have important roles in our community. We all are concerned citizens. We all are part of this community. And I wanted to get us all together to kind of sit down and come together because I know everybody's doing their part, and that's one thing I want to start off with is this is not a blame session. This is not a this person, this person, this person. This is we've got a problem. How are we going to solve this problem? And so that's what I want to start off with is we all are doing our little parts and I see it. I see Sheriff's Department trying. I see the churches trying. I see we're doing our part. Citizens are doing their part, but we're all not together. That's where I see the problem is we all want to be together, but there's loss of communication. That's where faults happen is loss in communication. And this is me trying to pull everyone together and improve communication for our community. And that's why we live streamed it so the community that wants to see and have input. We want it to be a village creating a safe environment because to me, a place to start is our children. To educate is one big important role. That's why, school's important. We're all important in education, but also we need to come together and figure out how we're going to kind of support each other is my best way to fight this problem. And I don't know how to fight it. I've got ideas. Everybody has ideas, but that's why I want to come everybody together and talk about our ideas and see what we can do to work together to help support, improve things, and make things better for our community. Really, I sit here and thinking, okay, I'm going to start this in Roby. And yes, my long-term goal would love to be Fisher County. I was talking with Jeff about this earlier. But right now, Roby is a good concentration. It's a small town. We can start small, and see how things work and open up more for Fisher County. But I think Roby is a good small unit to really concentrate and how do we as leaders fight this head on? What is it we need to do to support each other to improve fight drugs because they're getting bad. I mean, when I was young, I wouldn't have ever thought of drugs. I'm ignorant to drugs when I started my role. And now it's just like, I start seeing it in the younger and younger population. And I'm like, something's gotta be done. And Roby is a great community. We have support each other, but we've lost connections, it seems like. And I want connections to be back. So that's kind of where I'm starting at. Like I say, I don't know really what I want to get out of this is I want us to work on goals and a plan. And yes, I know it's not going to be fixed instantly. This is a long-term. We're getting into this for a long-term fight because the only way we can do this is together. So that's kind of where I'm starting at. So I'm going to let there be awkward silence. And then someone,
Sheriff, you got any ideas?
Certainly on the CNR end of the problem, of course, we're at how you put this, at the very bottom where you want to see people at. There's probably, other than mental health issues, probably nothing that consumes more of our time and effort is the drug use problem here. And I think quite honestly, I came from Corpus and I've never worked in the county, and I'm shocked at the level of drugs that we're been able to take in the streets here. Just small communities and the amounts I'm seeing, I would have seen in Corpus, and that's not a good thing. So anything that we can do to divert people from being in the jail, let me tell you, it's no fun arresting or dealing with somebody in a jail that's coming down off methamphetamine. It's not fun for them, and it's not really a safe thing, but sometimes it's the only thing we got left. I myself have taken people and driven them all the way to Abilene and put them in walk in their Serenity House looking for alternatives. So if somebody has an alternative, please, I don't care. Me and my deputies will do what we need to do to keep them out of that jail as often as possible.
He brought up that, and this is just something we're more familiar with, not so much the community, but we can get them to a facility. The problem is holding them. In 48, 72 hours does not fix the issue.
No.
It fixes it for that long, and then they're out. They feel better, and they go back to what they're doing. So that's something else to keep in mind while we're visiting.
You know, and on that subject, it goes to, you know, what services are there available for someone wanting to stop in our community?
It's all voluntarily.
Correct.
Majority of it, unless you can try to get adult protective services involved to like take care of that, majority of the time they have to voluntarily go put themselves in there.
Well, I mean, like as far as say, you know, I was talking earlier with some people, you know, so a situation, I have someone come into my office. They say, okay, I'm ready to quit. I'm going to rehab. You know, can you take care of my medications while I'm in rehab? Yes. So they go to rehab. What I see time in and time again, they go to rehab, they come back, they go right back to where they're living because they don't have anything. And then there's no support structure at that point for them to be like Narcotics Anonymous, just a good, simple program like Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no support structure for them to say, yes, I'm here. Now, also, you know, I mean, I know we're getting onto that part, but that is one of a structure. There's no support system I see as far as for, you know, the addiction aspect. You know, there's no place for someone to go, it's okay, we're here, you can do this, you can power through it. Instead, they go back to their house. There's a person that's using their drugs. Hey, here, go back to it. But also there's no support structure for that kid whose parents are doing drugs that, you know, what does he have to do? Other than he sees his parents do drugs, he doesn't know any better. So there's no support system there is. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there is not. I mean, but it's hard for them to reach out because, you know, the churches, there's always a great support structure. I mean, youth programs are great. They do a great job. 4-H, there's a 4-H program. But it's hard for those kids, you know, how do you get those kids there? How do you get them to, you know, into a safe environment where there is positive reinforcement, there's positive outlooks for them? Those are the little things we're missing. I don't know how to fix it.
Do we have an AA or NA program in the county? Any churches willing to sponsor one?
You know, it becomes one of those situations where manpower just becomes the primary driving principle behind everything. And so, you know, there are great programs out there, biblically based programs, even more so than even say AA or something like that. There are things like Celebrate Recovery that I've heard of and have seen work from a biblical standpoint. Again, it just comes to manpower. So to sit here and say as the pastor at First Baptist that, hey, we can do Celebrate Recovery would be saying there's a possibility, but it's also saying I have some church members in here, which one of you is going to do it? and so that becomes one of those situations where, is it something to talk about? Is it something that we could do from those terms? Yes, but it really does in our small communities come down to manpower. Do we have that ability to do that?
It's time to talk to you, Rick, what we're fixing to do in the jail. We need to, then we'll sit down when we get that running. We'll sit down and have a talk about
Yes.
some outreach I think we need to keep going.
That's correct.
One of the other things that you had said, Sheriff, is you touched on just a second was the mental health part. And so from that perspective, from the sheriff's office and what you deal with, drug abuse, but then you also, I'm sure, see mental health as
Substantial.
an issue
You'd
as
be
well.
surprised about the amount of mental crisis calls that we have to deal with. How many people we actually have to transport to behavioral hospitals in a given month? It's really high, and so.
What would you say would be if you had a percentage between mental health, drug abuse, what would you say that would be for you guys? I was always curious
Drug
about
abuse
that.
is certainly, probably 40-50% of our calls. Mental health is probably 10-20%. And the judge and I have already talked about a position that we're looking into called a mental health peace officer. Because MHMR is great,
What's it called again?
mental health peace officer position.
With this rescue money, they're gonna allow us to use some of that. The county will be on its own at the end of 2 years, but they'll give us money to budget for it. But that is somebody that just deals with mental health.
That's
So I
awesome.
think that's
Well, an
it's a
example,
start from something, I
yeah.
don't know what.
Nolan County has a couple of deputies. Taylor County, I think, has 4. Brownwood probably has 6, I want to say. So the program out there, the concept is that once they're released from MHMR, there's no follow-up. So, they keep feeling better and they're off their medications. Well, somebody needs to go in and physically check, make contact with them, say, hey, how's your medication? Personally myself, and since I've been here since May 17th, I've probably every other day made contact with somebody that has mental health issues. Because quite honestly, just having somebody talk to them, kind of rare.
A lot of
And,
that goes hand in hand anyway, though.
yeah.
Drug use.
Well, they're self-medicating is the
Yep.
term they like to use. But nonetheless, and that's where we're looking at going with the mental health peace officer. Because personally, MHMR in Sweetwater is great. I mean, but it's the same clientele that we're taking there.
Well, it's great, but
temporary too.
there's a lot of them that can't get to Sweetwater. And I know MHMR will come pick them up, but they don't want. And I mean, if
And
there's a
again, that's
certain,
a temporary 72, 48-hour hold.
so having that kind of, it'd be interesting to see if there's some way to kind of coordinate to work with the clinic, with the mental health peace officer and, coordinate to, is there a need in, working together on that?
We're looking at that very issue, yes, sir.
So.
The school district is working with Texas Tech Health Sciences. We have a program now that offers telemedicine for any of our students for free, and that they get to talk to psychologists. The psychologist can actually prescribe, and so the child doesn't even have to leave campus now to receive all the services. And so that's one of the things that we're, telemedicine, of course, in rural school. I mean, just like you said, driving somewhere is always half the battle for some of our kids and even for adults. And so that's one of the programs that we're trying to really push on that end. So hopefully telemedicine is an option for us down the line.
Are y'all aware that the school had that availability? I mean, I'm just curious.
It's fairly new. We're still learning it ourselves.
I mean, I have used it once, and I've even, as far as mine, I can work with the school. So if someone came into my office, I can call the psychiatrist and talk to him quickly. And he says, yes, it needs to get set up. He gets, they go to the counselor, talk to the counselor, and they set up meetings for him, for the child. So there is actually it's actually a psychiatrist taking care of the child for mental health. And so when y'all are out, and you see, you go into this house and there's a child and you feel like there's concern that we may need to be getting y'all some information to help the child out too, because that's a tough situation for that child.
Well, we're kind of obligated. If my deputy feels there's a concern for the child, we're pretty much obligated to go the CPS route.
Correct.
And they kind of deal with that issue. As far as our inmates, there's telemed that.
Yeah, that was a blessing.
So, I mean, that's not, where I think we're missing out a whole lot is, there's a whole lot of kids in this community that are reluctant to come forward or talk to us, so they need somebody to trust. And I love seeing this community center over here and what Rokan got, But that kind of thing right there where there's involvement and there's an intervening party that can come forward with assessing the information that we probably need to have. And the way the kid has some way to reach out without having to talk to our two big ugly galoots. And, so they're not in that position where they're, hey, I don't want to talk to the police, and we understand that, but nonetheless, I'm asking y'all, pay attention to these kids and don't think, well, no, it's not happening here. It's happening here is what we're trying to tell you.
So Sheriff, is there anything that would prevent you guys from, whenever you do run into those situations where children are involved, to pass that information along to the school district that does have or at least soon anyway, once they get all the kinks worked out, to have those capabilities of being able to reach out to professionals? Can you talk to the school district who can kind of reach out to this kid and maybe encourage them to reach out and talk to those professionals? Since they have the capabilities and you have the information, is there anything that prevents y'all from talking in that way?
And every time that there's a police report involved, the school district has a right to the report, and they're given a report involving students. That being said, that's a criminal offense that has limited use. It doesn't tell you the story about the kid.
Right.
It just tells you there's a situation, this is what happened, and this is the offense. It doesn't tell you the environment they're living in that really needs, there's not somebody to go, my guys aren't going to go kicking in the door and looking for that nasty stuff that some of these kids live in. That's why I'm saying I really need for the community to step forward and saying, hey, look, there's a house over there, and I don't want my name attached to it, but this kid's living in trash.
Well, and that's another.
Is there a Crime Stoppers type number for people?
CPS will tell you that they're required to document that. And they send that to me all the time. I probably get about, one a week. And then like other jurisdictions, we do go out and look.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you there's a lot of times, especially in some parts of community where it's a little bit more transient, that we don't have a good relationship with the child. If it's somebody from the community you've known for a while, the environment, the parents, everything else. It's some of those other kids that are around here that I've noticed lately that do not have a real strong tie to the community, that are probably slipping in the cracks, that they've probably had history someplace else. That's why CPS really would prefer that you go that route so they can get the total history from where they've dealt in other locations with them.
Yes, I know you're focusing on the kids, which I think is a great point, but we're at the time now, this is a generation, we're in the second generation. What's going to make this even harder, to get started, but we may need to look deeper with some help from the parents, because they've grown up saying this is okay, this is the way they grew up.
Yeah.
So it's not just like they tried it once. So I'm just saying this thing's going to snowball too, as far as who may need help, which could be even other parents.
Oh, and I wonder too, when I was a kid and I grew up here, there used to be a group of trustees that would come from Gatesville or Huntsville, I think, to talk to the kids. And when you said, some of these kids, it's the way they grow up, so they may not realize that it's wrong because it's what they know. There was a group of these trustees that would come in and talk about, this is the house that I grew up in, this is the environment that I grew up in, these were the choices that I made, and here I am in, a white or orange suit behind bars for 30 years because of this. And it made an impression on me. I was terrified of winding up there. I didn't do much wrong, but I wonder if getting somebody in the early years to help let them know, hey, this is wrong, this is not normal, this is not good, maybe help the kids at least know that this is wrong earlier on. Maybe it would help. I don't know.
And kind of in my thoughts is, looking into, because I know education is key, and having educational opportunities like that, drug dog, I was pointing at you, yes, I was, little presentations, but for like drug dogs presentations, educating kids, this is what goes on. And, they're being in education, even parents. it's the parents is going to be the heart, like you say, it is an important focus. it's a hard beast to crack too. You know, to me, in development, when you have a kid that's searching for attention, if you have a place, you know, like a church or a school that can kind of give them a safe place to feel. And then, you know, like you said, Sheriff, you said, you know, they need a safe place to talk to someone they feel trustworthy with. But then you run into the problem, and this is every problem, and this is, I don't know how to get a solution, but it doesn't need to fall on Brandon.
No.
It doesn't need to fall on Carter. It doesn't need to fall on you. It doesn't need to fall on you. It needs to fall on us, like as a community, for volunteer help. And that's the hardest thing, as everybody knows, is it's not our jobs to do it all by ourselves. I'll shut up.
No, I was just gonna say, if we have any idea of a financial, I know we can't pick a number, but $5,000, $10,000 to start to do some things, now's a really good time. And if some of y'all would volunteer and come while we're in budget,
Please.
and don't take this wrong way, but if people from the community will come and ask, you will receive.
I'll come ask once if we can.
Can I ask a question from the judgeship? I don't know if that's the right word or not. The judgeship part is that, you know, we talk about, you know, the education presentations to the kids, and you talk about that it's generational, and that we have parents and then that there's accepting. When there is, you know, let's say students, or if there's somebody that comes before you or before a court, is there ways that you could order a program or something that they could go through? I mean, is there things that, I mean, I was just trying to think of, you know, from ours, you know, if a child gets in trouble, you know, we can have them meet with the counselor X amount of time to try to find out what is there things like that that's.
I really don't know, and that's a tough call, because Kevin and I have, not necessarily on the drug, but we have exchanged. That kind of falls into no man's
Sure.
land.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's the reason I'm offering, if y'all will come, and maybe we can get, I know you don't know how much money, but it's gonna cost something,
Yeah,
whatever
sure.
we do. But if we can get that and show some progress, and then we can always go back and get more, and that may be something we need to look at, but you're gonna have transportation if you can find it.
Well, and I was just trying to think of, you know, from, you know, one of the commitments from the school district's perspective is that, you know, we're going to focus our efforts on not only presentations for our students, but for just our parents, but also for the community. So we're going to start a presentation series on drugs, alcohol, those types of things that we're also going to post on all our Facebook. We're going to have meetings at school, those types of things. Not that people will come, but, you know, those types of opportunities to, at least if we can get people in the door, if we can just get the message out, you know. And I can only speak from the school's perspective, but I just didn't know from the court side.
Yeah,
what
that's
Because they've done teen challenge stuff before, you probably, you know,
it's
you
called what
mandate
now?
teen challenge.
Okay.
It's, you know, you mandate that they go to teen challenge and they get a reduced sentence, you know, and it's a year-long program. It's not a 90-day rehab. But you run into the same problem where y'all know an addict who's going to jail will say anything and everything to get out of that jail sentence, you know? And
it'll sound good too.
And it sounds good. You know, we're going to take you to teen challenge. We're going to drop you off, and then bam, they're out the door and they're gone again. You know, they got to really want to change. Really, really want to change.
But as the judge is saying, like on the AA and NA program where we need money.
Yeah.
Now's the time to present that if you.
Really, a lot of those AA programs is just volunteering anyways. It's finding somebody who wants to come once a week and accept drug addicts to come in and talk
You know,
about it.
say church hosts it though. I mean, having funding for that maybe help cost for coffee, snacks, help cost for paying just for the lights for that short bit of time. You know, to kind of help get things moving for that aspect. Now it is that those kind of programs are voluntary. You know, you've got to find the right person that's gonna really want to help drive it, because, and not just one, it's got to be, you know, a little group of volunteers, because, you know, those meetings usually are 2-3 times a week. And, you know, you've got to find, in a way, you have to find a former addict that wants to be able to run it and create a support group. And so that's going to be the challenge. That's a hard program to start, but you do need some money for it because coffee costs money. Cups cost money.
Space and time cost money.
Space and time. And so if there's $5,000 for running or $10,000 running a celebrity program to help these people kind of create a space for them, a safe space, because you can't really have it at the courthouse. That doesn't feel safe. I can't host it at the jailhouse. That doesn't really feel safe. That's the problem is the safest place a lot of times is the church.
And I would tell you, like, just off the bat, and I'll speak off the cuff and probably without permission from the church, but I'll tell you that if it's one of those situations where you need a space, we'll open up the doors to the fellowship hall all day long whenever you need us to. And so that's not an issue. We have the space, we have the facility. And I'm not just talking about our church. I know there's other churches, there's other buildings. I'm offering from our perspective. If it comes to that, then the church doors will be open to you at any point in time. Well, that's what we're put here for, partial to preaching. And I'm not here in just a minute because it's wanting to come out. And so it might happen in just a second. So I'm biting my tongue right now. So just be prepared for about a 30-minute sermon here in a minute, just getting all my points together. But all to say, if you need a facility or a space, then we can make that happen. That's not a problem.
One of the questions I have is that it sounds like to me that there's a lot of ideas swirling. And so if you had to choose one to start with that had the biggest bang for the buck, what alcohol, drug, a specific drug? I'm just saying, you can start way too many programs and it not ever work. But if you focus on one and just nail it home and then bring in another one, would there be one that from medical's perspective, from sheriff's perspective, is there one area that would be the
one where
meth and drugs?
Yeah.
But it's,
there was an incident last month and, after interviewing some of the juveniles, most of them have been introduced into narcotics. These are youngsters, heavy narcotics.
It's from the parents.
And it's not just, mom and pop's weed. It's, methamphetamine, cocaine.
Is it mom and pop weed or mom and pop cocaine and amphetamine? Are they learning? Is it there at home?
So in one situation, it was at home.
So maybe we need to start by trying to reach out and fix some of the parents.
Yes.
Well, in a way, that's kind of what Judge was saying is,
Which is a bigger challenge.
that is a
but
very big challenge.
I don't know, we can. Can y'all reach out?
Yeah.
Within people, within the congregation who know other people within the community and find somebody who once was lost and found their way back?
You really want me to preach and Carter to preach?
Not at all. But to find somebody that is recovered and maybe willing to run that program.
Yeah.
I'm third generation out of a drug addict's house. I was introduced to methamphetamine whenever I was about 12 years old. So I've been to Teen Challenge. I've been through the whole thing. I've been in every county jail from here to Breckenridge, So that's kind of, the Celebrate Recovery thing is probably going to be the way to go, because a pound of prevention, or whatever the saying is, a pound of prevention is worth a ton of treatment, If we can get to them early, get to them fast, the adults I'm speaking of, not the kids, the adults, but they've got to want to change, You can go to all the AA meetings that you want. It's
something else that they don't realize is the repercussions of all this.
Yeah.
They don't realize, most time it's not going to be a little slap on the wrist. It's not until they get behind those bars they're like, man, messed up.
Do you think people that you're running into that have the drug problems in this town would be willing to come to a program in this town?
It'd be better than having to drive all the way to
I
Abilene.
don't think so.
that's going to be the difficult part is
I would do that.
if somebody sees your car sitting at the church on Wednesday at 8 p.m., everybody knows that's where Celebrate Recovery is.
Exactly.
And then that's where the gossip and small town.
No, we don't have gossip. That does not
Is that
occur.
a motion?
Yeah.
Probably let him get a second.
Then it's based on how you gauge success. I mean, because ultimately, if you gauge success on numbers, then most of the time we're going to fail. But if you gauge success on one person changing their life, that then inevitably changes another generation, changes another generation, changes another generation, then that in and of itself is a success. So if you only got one person coming to begin with, and yeah, maybe you wanted 100, but only one came, and you changed the life of 4 other students and the grandkids that came along down the way, that was a success in and of itself. And so we've got to have our ways of gauging what is successful and what is not successful when we begin programs like that. Because if we say 10 success, only 1 came, we failed. Well, no, maybe you didn't. You succeeded in that one person's life. So the way that we gauge and look at success is going to be important for us as well.
If you put somebody on probation and you send them some, you got to do AA, NA, or some kind of meeting, and the nearest one is in Sweetwater, or the nearest one is in Snyder or in Abilene, and they don't have a car, what chance they got?
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's 10 cars or no cars there, that somebody walked in that door, we're one less person in my jail, and we're one less person, then one of my deputies have to go in and find dead of an overdose in some building.
Yeah.
So, it may cost $5,000 for one person. Well, it's better than spending that $5,000 between court time, jail time, prison time, transport. So where are we spending our money?
Sure, I'd spend $5,000 to fix that one as opposed to housing them, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Feeding them.
Are there any credentials required to run a program like that? I mean, is that just volunteers?
No,
Do you have to have training?
Not for Celebrate Recovery or any type of, whenever it becomes a religious event, then none of that applies, Now, if it's a state-sponsored event, yes, you've got to have your LCDC?
Yeah, your license.
Licensed Chemical Dependency Counselor. So you've got to have your LCDC if it's a state-sponsored event, but if it's a church-sponsored event, you don't need any of that stuff.
I believe Celebrate Recovery is like a curriculum-based driven thing. Like you could go out today on Amazon Prime and type in Celebrate Recovery, and it's going to send you curriculum, almost like a Bible study to some degree.
And AA goes off of AA, NA, any of those, Narcotics Anonymous, those go off of what they call the big book, which is the AA book. I don't know what to call it other than that. And it's more of like kind of like a Weight Watchers, but for drugs.
That's wrong that you say the big book and then turn around and say Weight Watchers.
I'm sorry.
That's just wrong. That's just wrong on all counts.
So looking at this, I mean, that's one focus we need to really, I think we probably should really look at, is creating some kind of support structure for the adults. So like a Celebrate Recovery. So we need to look at, because I just quickly looked at Celebrate Recovery. I mean, it's $12 for a book.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to need to get a book. So, I mean, you do have a cost there. So I think if we need to, it's going to take some time. It's not an over the night deal, but, I think some of us need to group in, kind of get a group kind of as a sort of focus of people together to kind of work on starting to see what it would take to develop that. I mean, all of us together, we could sit here and talk about it, but, the more people you have talking about one thing, the harder it is. But it's knowing as a big group, we're all in support and will help when we can, as best we can, but also trying to create a foundation of volunteers that are willing to help run the program. And those volunteers do need to be, to me, recovery, addicts, but it's not, it's going to have to be at first starting us being able to start something like that.
Let me ask this question from the law enforcement side is that when you start talking, a lot of what everyone I believe is talking about is intervention, is in intervening in those that are currently already involved in that. And then you have the prevention side, which is keeping the drugs out, and that do those conflict? I mean, when you start doing a lot of the prevention and everything else, does that, I mean, I don't know how that works, but I mean.
Something I've learned over the years is, as a police officer, you learn your community because you deal with them day in, day out. As a citizen, you may run into people that but you don't really go out and just come up to a stranger and be like, hey, I'm Tanner Garcia, what's your name? And so, at Snyder, I know thousands of people over there. Here in Fisher County, there's 3,000 and something folks. If the community goes out and just starts learning your community, you're going to talk to them more. Like I was driving around Rotan the other day. I made a new friend, an older gentleman. So I stopped in and go and talk to him. Just learning the community, and that builds up more of a rapport.
Yeah, it does.
And it can cross as where part of probation is to go to, AA or Celebrate Recovery. Some sort of gathering. So that can be a condition of their probation. Usually it's like 10 meetings or something per year, something like that.
If we can get something like that started, we can put that in their probation.
Yeah.
Because or even our community service, because we'll say, well, we're going to give you 10 hours community service.
Yeah.
What is that? It can be anything, but this might be, even if it's not a drug issue.
Yeah.
It makes them aware, makes the public aware. That's a condition.
10 hours community services running 10 Celebrate Recovery.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Force that to some
Yeah.
type of volunteer work.
Exactly.
So we could tie all that in
So
together,
then that
still
can
be
start-
within the legal.
I can start being
Volunteer
built.
work like they have to attend the meeting, or volunteer
Absolutely.
work like they have to conduct one?
No, just be there.
I'd even be at conducting, because then you start getting these
Because then
people.
you really are volunteering if you're conducting the meeting.
Your facilitator, you usually want somebody else facilitating. That's the thing. You want to figure that.
But you could have them there. They could be working the coffee. They could be doing the door. They could be cleaning up after it's over with. I mean, so I
All a
understand what you're saying.
facilitator does is open up the meeting, close the meeting. The whole rest of the meeting is people in the meeting.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes you'll have a sponsored person who's a guy who just got out after 30 years in the pen, and he's doing good with his family, and he's clean, and he'll show up, and kind of give his testimony, story, whatever. And then the rest of the people will get up and kind of share what they've been going through for the week and how they're, making it through or how they're not making it through.
I think that would be both, yeah. It seems like this is like a good focus on some of it.
Well, another thing I'll say real quick, I think if the church is willing to open the doors, not to put it on you guys, but that's a lot better. You don't have to do with all the bureaucratic. You start on a state sponsor something, you're gonna have eyes on you and paperwork and reports, and not that we don't need to go that at some point, but I think we need to ease into whatever we're doing before you get.
Well, it's something we can't build, overnight. It is something that you gotta slowly build up. So I think that, to me, that's gonna help the adults kind of aspect. I'm trying to get, so we kind of need to get a small group to help with that, to start that up. I'll start off volunteering, I'll help with that.
I think that it's gonna, consistency is important. Because
Correct.
I know, there are a few kids who have confided in me, and they do see their parents doing stuff. And then they just see them slapped on the wrist or whatever, and then they go right back to it. One kid in particular, like, Miss Fawcett, what's the point? If they're not gonna get in trouble, why even mess with it? So they're seeing nothing happen, and so they're thinking, I can do whatever I want to. It's not gonna matter. And talking to those kids is almost impossible, because like Judge was saying, or whoever, it is from the parents, and the parents say it's okay. So, and they're not seeing anything happen, so it's okay for them. So I think it's gonna have to be something consistent. If you do decide to do the what Darren's talking about and send them, I think it's gonna be like straight across the board, and not, well, this person, we're just gonna do like 2 days, and this one 20.
My thing is, how are we gonna celebrate recovery when these people don't want?
That's what I was gonna say, was
recover.
how many people in this county can we honestly say that we know that have I can think of one.
Well, that boils down to, in this county, how many facilities and places have they had to go to support them, to celebrate them? How many times have you known them going to a sober house, going to get rehab and then coming back after rehab, but what do they do to celebrate? There's nothing here to celebrate.
How do we get them clean?
So are you, so let me
So
ask a question.
therefore,
So-
we can celebrate their,
So are you saying the access to the drugs is still around? So
Oh,
they-
yeah.
No, I mean, no, but that's what you're saying
Yeah.
is that.
What is their incentive to get cleaned up?
right,
Oh,
like, I mean,
How do you incentivize to then get them to celebrate?
what's gonna make them feel better than that drug does for them to want to be clean? That's my question.
I would tell you that one of the principles behind Celebrate Recovery, in all honesty, is Jesus Christ. Like
Right.
that is ultimately, and that's why I would promote Celebrate Recovery from the church. So if you're looking for a program, I'm going to tell you that at the church we'll do Celebrate Recovery because it's biblically based, it's Jesus Christ driven. Am I probably going to open up to AA? Probably not, just for the simple fact that it's not as cut and dry. So for me, the celebration comes from a life that is a new life in Christ Jesus, and he's better than the drug. And that's going to take time. And I know we're thinking that sounds great, but that's the reality of things. Even when we start talking about children, like there's got to be new life in Christ, that he's better than all those other things. And then a support network that is relatively close to you, tied into you, plugs you into church, maybe not our church, but to any church. I want you to go into a biblically driven church, right? Like that is the ultimate goal. Like that connects you to a community that holds you accountable, that holds you to that standard that you've said that you are. And so to me, that's the celebration. Can we think of incentives? Yeah, absolutely. You can think of giving them a T-shirt or something. I'm just throwing that there. A T-shirt would be small in comparison, but you know what I mean. We could give you something if you walk through this program. You've been clean for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 100 days, whatever. We could do something along those lines. But
How about the hug of a child that's not in CPS or with the district judge telling you you won't be able to visit your child? How about the ability to hold your child because you're not looking on the other side of the glass from my jail?
Mhm.
Or how about you having a child that's around for 6 months from now, you're going to be over in Abilene in the prison? There's a lot of different motivating things that are all negative. Whereas
One of the things-
parents talking about something a lot more positive I'd rather see them do.
But one of the concerns I have from the school district's perspective is that what we see time and time again is that kids have access to it.
Yes, they do.
They have access to the drugs. They
Whether
have
or
access.
not the parents are doing it, they
And
have
it's-
access.
And it's one of those things it's like, we hear from different people that, well, so-and-so, it's happening in this house, whether I know it is or not. And then, that's the concern I have is that, from the perspective of, just like Ms. Fawcett talked about, you can talk to the kids, you can bring them in and counsel them, and you can get them on the right path. But when that access to that is still around, when they leave, it's still there. And if you get rid of this one house here and there's another house that has it, it's not going to stop them from going from house A to house B and still continue. I don't know. That's just a concern that I know from the school's perspective, that it's, it scares me. Just the fact is that it seems so readily available. I don't know. And that's, I please understand, I'm not
No.
pulling that on y'all.
The reality is-
That's very clear.
I'd like to tell you that in 6 months, it'll be greatly reduced. That would nowhere near be true. There's too much motivation between the money and the ease of life that presents, that we're going to be having a continual battle.
So as far as the community saying that right there, what is it we can do to help support you?
I'm telling you right now, I think our resources are a whole lot better spent on giving that one kid that wants a chance someplace to go. Because they do make a choice. They're 13 or 14 years old. You're making the wrong choice. You're right at that age where you're going to end up in prison.
And a lot of them don't have parents that support them.
Or their parents are on the other side saying this is the way life is. So
That's
Just
true, but I've
program
also
age specific.
seen the opposite on that too. I've seen parents want their kids in, but your kids are 21 or 22 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, what section?
So
Section it out.
Okay.
besides, as well as focusing on say, Celebrate Recovery, also needs to be a focus on the children.
Yes.
We have to attack both of them.
If you can change their mindset at a young age, the older they get, the more they get set in their ways.
So we also need to start working on kind of developing kind of, big brother, big sister,
Yep.
those kind of type of situations, more safe places to go, hang out, work on improving
Community events.
more community. Hopefully COVID will let us do that.
If we go to the church or whatever, that may be a way to start, ask for $5,000, $10,000, whatever you think. So if we need to pay somebody to come in and talk to these kids that are
Yeah.
transportation,
Yeah.
gas, money, whatever.
I think
I
programs.
think they need to be scared.
That's what I think. I think that's where your biggest impact is gonna come
Yeah,
from.
I mean,
is
excellent.
when you get them at that impressionable age, they're
So.
things that you say, they don't forget that.
So in thinking on stuff like that, I'm just saying, like, kind of like the hub, they have is there a big room kind of where you can post things and things like that? We could have education events like once a month or every other month for those kids or something like that. Just thinking outside the box where you get someone to come do that's not a scare tactic, but, a reality check. And
Scare tactic is good.
I mean, but in all reality, you need this, show them this is what's going to happen, or this is, and it's a safe environment for them. But then, also they have a safe place afterwards. They can kind of hang out and talk about what they saw with things. And I know Carter's big challenge is also volunteer help, right? You were kind of talking about because that's going to be all our problems for this is.
Yeah, you gotta figure out a way to get them to come.
Yeah.
However, whatever, because it comes back to choice, because if people have choices, you can have the best program. This is 100% work. Teen Challenge is by far the best if they stay, if they finish it, but there's still this choice factor. We ran the hub every weekend for 10, 12, I know the last 2 years before COVID. But usually, most of the kids that need to be there, that need help, that need safety, that need counseling, that need discussion, that need to hear the truth, that need Jesus, that need freedom, they ain't coming. They're hiding over yonder, they're at somebody's house, and they're not coming. So you got to figure out a way to get them there. Because we get them, and they'll come when it's cool and it's fun and it's an event, and they come hang out because they've never been there before. But by the time they get to be 12 or 13, and it's the same way with church. If they don't get Jesus by the time they leave high school, they're done.
And that's something too, from the school's perspective is the kids that aren't involved in the extracurricular activities or in anything like that are the ones that we really need to have need to have some type of grasp of having them here. And so that's I will say this, I've got to go to a commissioner's meeting, but the one thing that I that really concerns me is the access to the drugs. And that to me is one of the biggest issues. And I don't know, how do you scare the drugs out of the town?
And I'm not speaking for the sheriff. We're working real hard, and I think we've got a good handle on starting. But something everybody needs to keep in mind, it's never going to be over.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
you are
It's
correct.
100% now. We can maybe get it to 85, but it's always going to be
But
around. So that's going to
15%
be the key.
It's much better than
Believe it
nothing,
or
and I
not,
agree with that 100%.
Just shut down one dope house,
Yeah.
next door realizes, hey, my competition's out.
Exactly. So anything that the community can do to help you guys cause in that area, please let us know. And I will take care of that part. And I will do my part in that.
Talk to us,
So-
flag us down, whatever you gotta do, come in my door.
Well, I mean, and that's
More
the,
information we have.
that's the thing is also when you say just call. I mean, we know that, but is there like a way to put up phone, the sheriff's office phone number? If you see a crime in action, call. Just, put signs up around the town saying, call me. We want to help.
Mr. Jeff will tell you can walk in my door anytime and
Yeah.
come on in and we'll talk.
Well, I'm just saying, because, yes, he knows that. I mean, I'm aware of that. A lot of people are, but not the whole community. And I don't think you want the whole community running in, but you want them calling.
Well, I'd rather several of the people come in and talk to me. We'll have a different talk and solve some issues, but nonetheless, the point being is that there's been a reluctance by the sheriff's office sometimes to take an active role in reaching out, and that's going to change. you will see deputies stopping and talking to people, like Tanner's telling you. You will see us going into places. You will, and feel free by all means. I don't care where I'm at or Tanner's at or Matt's at. Flag us down and say, hey, if they don't get your officer doesn't respond properly and pay attention to you, let me know, and that will come to a definite end.
Yeah.
We're not going to be driving down the road with the windows up. And we're not going to give you excuses that, oh, I got to go to this call and do this. We need to do a whole lot better listening than we've done in the past. So that, I promise you, is changing. That being said, people still need to take a chance on us. I know I'm asking a lot. Talk to us. I would hope that.
And hopefully with the mental deputy we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're putting an additional deputy into the budget. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have a little more boots on the ground. Not that that's a cure-all, but I think
It's
the
not.
more you're seeing, the more you can stop.
But I mean, it just making you, I mean, my thing is how do we make the community, I mean, yeah, I hear you, and I will call if I see something. How do we make the other people that aren't here today know it's okay to call you? That's one of the hardest communication aspects.
Well, what I'm saying is to be patient.
Yeah.
Because they need to see it out of us. And
Oh,
it hasn't been
I-
long enough.
I
You know, and while I tell you that that's happening, and some people see it happening, stick around.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of change. And I apologize to some of y'all that if I haven't been in your door yet, I'll soon be there, you know. So by all means, if somebody has a question, I don't care who I talk to or when I talk to them. You can hear from the people at the courthouse. It's a little bit different. I'm kind of a strange dude, but I don't mind talking to anybody about anything and ask me. And I'll tell you flat out how the cow eats the cabbage. That's just the way I am. That's the thing I expect out of my deputies, because I think you guys deserve to hear from the people you pay a lot of money to protect you. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Yeah, come on in, and I'll, at the same time, and I'll apologize to the Reverend. I've talked to Bobby, to my preacher a lot, but I'm gonna be over here asking a whole lot of things because I'll be knocking on your door. And Brother Tommy will tell you that I'm not bashful about, come with me to talk to so-and-so, because that's what this community has a capability of doing. I came from one that you didn't know your neighbor. You were scared of your neighbor. I was a gang officer for 13 long years in Corpus, out of 25 years there. Some people slept in a steel bathtub. That's not normal. That's not right. And that's where it can go to very easily. Because when I was a kid, Corpus was a town I rode a bike around in and had a good time in. I'm disgusted by the town I come from. This is going there, and I see it going there, and yeah, it scares the bejeebies out of me, the amount of dopes I see here, because the next thing you're going to know is people shooting each other over $20 worth of meth. The judge has already seen that. Y'all have the ability, this community, y'all have known each other for years. Why do you want to let it turn like that? I came here from Corpus and people, why'd you move to Fisher County? It's heaven compared to where I came from. And people will know there's this problem, that problem. Y'all know each other and y'all care about each other. Tanner's come back here. He's so pleased to be back here because people knew him when he was a little stinking kid from around here. He has pride in this place, and they should. And yeah, it has problems. And I'm shocked at some of the problems. Nonetheless, I'll be knocking on your door saying, hey, I need this and need that. So, Brother Carry-On, we're going to talk here a few minutes, and I'm going to put you to work here, if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
But please, come in our door. The judge will tell you, I'm not above walking anybody's door and bringing a problem and saying,
Sometimes without knocking.
Yeah.
So more or less, most of the time the citizens don't know what we do or how we do things, Like,
Come on.
I couldn't tell you how to go and hook up IV or anything like that. You know, that's y'all's, you know,
Either way.
that's y'all's profession, you know? So we don't mind.
Kevin has to do it.
Y'all mind. Come in and talk to us. We'll give you a tour of the jail, you know, walk you through there.
I like what I hear.
Oh, we've been there.
We've been in the padded room.
Yeah,
Ride along.
Really?
That's what I'm
yeah.
A lot of dogs.
That would be so
Do that in
fun.
Morton.
You know you can ride along, yeah?
Hey,
So,
he's looking at your bottle. Come here. Come
Yeah,
here.
he will tear that up.
Lucas,
Be nice.
hey,
Come here.
get over here.
so I think kind of the two things that I think we kind of all right now focus on, because we can't do everything. It is one, I feel like we need to concentrate on the celebrate recovery aspect.
Yep.
I think that's going to be one we need to focus on. The other is, how do we get, right now I don't have an answer for it, but how do we get more youth and education to the youth? And a safe place for the youth.
Yeah, how do we get anything to sink into the youth?
Yeah, I mean, how do you draw them in? And one thing is you can always draw a lot of people in with food. I mean, I tried to put some food in there and no one's gone. I haven't seen no, but
You know, all through history and even the history of the Bible, we see that the things that have worked is grace and mercy, and that's where the church comes in. And then where that doesn't work, judgment comes in. And if those things work together, then that kid may not have a choice but have to go.
Yeah.
That parent may not have a choice but have to go. And if there's that accountability of that person where they have to, then it'll start to work. But that has to go through, the judgment part has to come through the JP and the sheriff's office. And I know it's hard. I love what you're saying. I mean, there's been times back where we try to talk to sheriffs and with the look it would be like, shut up. That would be the look. I'm not saying that's what they said.
No, I understand. And
But you know, there has to be that accountability and that judgment. I would rather see a child have to go live with somebody than to him to have to suffer living with a parent that is teaching them how to kill himself eventually. And the offset of that, you know, Heather was talking about that one child may be 12 or 13 and he's on drugs. Now, that child that's 12 or 13, 14, now he's got access to drugs also because that one hasn't. So we're all in it. You know, I don't have kids that age, but I have grandkids.
Yep.
I remember when Tanner was a toot on my bus. And he turned out to be pretty good. Yeah, there has to be accountability and there has to be that grace and mercy and they have to work together. And if they don't work together, then we can just throw all this out the door.
A lot of times it's a circle too.
Oh, it is.
It's, you know,
It's
you
always
go
a
get
circle.
judged and then you get shown mercy by our group. And then you go get judged and then you get shown mercy again.
I'm pretty cyclical with that.
And a lot of times it works
Keep
like
going
that.
until you die,
It took me 3 years to finally get it, you know?
until it gets straightened out.
So,
The majority of the time, it's just repetition.
but part of it, like Eli said, you've got to have the judgment aspect and it's got to be harsh. And
Well, I think that's what's happened here in our community, and I'll just throw this out here. Historically, we've not ever done anything to people that do anything wrong. I mean, several cases that we just kind of, and I'm seeing it's these same kids, younger siblings, who we're having issues with because we've never done anything to break it in the church. We slap you on the hand. I mean, nothing's been done that's setting an example, you know, send them to post. If they do something, send them out of here, get them out of here, send them to a place where they see what it's like to really be bad. And I just don't think we've ever done anything.
And nothing is done when, I mean, I contacted a coach in the middle of last year with names of kids that I knew for a fact had drugs. And I was told, well, we don't have a drug program, so there's really nothing we can do about it.
come see me.
So,
Or some good old fashioned hard labor on these kids.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Help them clean up this town, like all those windows they busted and shattered.
Yeah.
Get your butt in there and sweep up that whole building, clean.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I've seen from the previous place that I came from within the aspects of the school district is a really strict drug policy. And it's almost a one strike and you're out policy, almost. It's and yes, does it cost money to run those drug tests on those kids? Absolutely. But for some of those kids, the highest incentive for them is to play in athletics. And if you take that away from them, we can say, well, that's going to drive them deeper into it. And it wasn't impossible for them to get back, but they had to run 25 miles to get back into the program, and they still had to come to practice. So we're not kicking you out of the program altogether. When we're working out, you're running 25 miles, and there's going to be somebody there watching you. But it was tough because that incentive was such a big deal for them. And to be honest, when I started hearing those things, like, damn, the way it's being handled within the athletic department, it's not strict enough. And so they're just kind of like, I can continue to do it. In fact, I can go do it or get caught with it, and nothing's going to happen to me. And so it's a approach.
And it's because if they drug test our athletes, we're not going to have a whole team. I can guarantee you.
How much team you going to have when that kid's passed out and dead?
Well, hopefully there's going to be some change and all that, because there's change coming, of course, all the coaching changes and everything, mindset. And we're not into that. We're hopeful, and as well as the drug testing as well, that for different reasons hadn't done, but is all going to be back implemented. I don't know at what levels, but a lot of that stuff is hopefully going to help some of that. The problem on that was was a lot of the kids here that were sure enough active and using and giving, they didn't do sports. They just said, forget it, we're not doing sports.
They didn't do sports, they didn't park the car on campus, so they weren't considered extracurricular, and you can't drug test them. Yeah. And so that's where that's the gap that Jason Carter was saying, is there's that group of kids that don't do athletics, that don't use school facilities, they just come to school and go. You can't just test their drugs. Now we've hired in some canine to come in more randomly. And
that's what I was going to say.
And so
they're bringing it with them.
Yeah, and so that's going to be coming into play where there's more drug dog use and coming in and inspecting. So.
And all that works good from 8 to 3:30.
Yeah. And that's then where do you give a safe place for these kids from 3:30 till on? Yes, it goes with the parents. So we're gonna. And I still say some of us are going to work on this celebrate recovery, but also we need to work on this safe place for the kids. That's a good environment, or a healthy environment of the grace and mercy, of education and incentive to come. If it's something like the hub needs more ways to get food there, maybe we can ask for $5,000 or $10,000 so that we can get stock the place up with sodas and snacks and sandwiches, and then they can provide food for the snacks and drinks for the kids, and they can come and then, hey, while you're here, here's a little education. Here's God. This is what he can do. And then do some, occasionally you can have, someone come in and do a presentation. I'm just.
Random drug test,
Not at the hub.
Yeah.
Needs to be a safe environment. But those are the things we're needing to look at are those two aspects to kind of start. There's a lot of other things. There are tons of other things, but where's something simple? Well, not super simple, but something simple we can work on together slowly and make a small impact. Maybe get that one person or one kid, because that's what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for the whole town, because we can't, but we can aim for that one kid or that one adult that we can change a life. And that's what we want to do. If we get more than one, that's great. But if we get one, it's a win. Like Brandon said, if we can save that one person, then all this is worth it.
Sure.
So what about neighborhood watching or mandatory curfew? Like, kids are not allowed to be out past this time, and if they are, they have to suffer the consequences. Cause I mean, there's so many kids just
Yeah.
running around this town like they're homeless basically
I caught them
because,
right over at the school the other day at 2:00 in the morning.
yeah, I mean, nothing good happens after, well, now that I'm older, nothing good happens after 10. But you know, I was always told nothing good happens after midnight, and it really doesn't. It's just all
I mean,
like trouble, basically.
could the community help in that aspect of helping? I mean, not that I want to get me a light on top of my car and all that, drive around.
We know.
Sometimes like if, not like being nosy, like, I'm gonna go stare, at your house all day long. But like, if you notice somebody that's
Yeah.
acting unusual, pay
I mean, I
attention to
don't
what they
live in
do. You'd be
town,
surprised
but-
what just a little bit of watching can do.
Let me ask this, as mayor. If the city would put an ordinance to say, unless it's for work related or whatever, curfew is at midnight. Okay, that's all well and done. We've got a bunch of ordinances, we may have that one already, but now we don't have a police department in the city, it's the county. Is the county gonna help us out with that?
County is prohibited from enforcing city ordinances. That being said, having a city ordinance and a citizen complaining about that gives the officer the right to intervene. Tanner sees kids out here at the high school at 2:00 in the morning, they're not doing nothing but sitting there talking. He doesn't have a right to intervene. Now, he may make a courtesy contact, which they do all the time. But nonetheless, when that citizen complains about that suspicious activity, we intervene.
Well, can the county make a curfew?
County can, here's your issue is gonna be, and I'm not saying the county shouldn't, but the county probably can't if Roby wants it, Rotan doesn't. That's where you're gonna run into problems. The county can't. If y'all can agree, then the county can do it. I mean, if Rotan and Roby both want to agree to do something, it's gonna be hard for the county to do it when one town does it and one wants it, so that's just an issue, is what I'm saying.
So if both the city councils agree,
Right, if they could, then the county come wrap it all up. So
then the county can say, okay, we've got two city groups that want a curfew in the county. So it need to
Approach
be.
commissioners about adopting an ordinance.
yeah, I don't think they'll have an issue doing it. I'm
No.
just,
I don't think the city of Rotan and Roby City will have a problem with putting in at 12 o'clock.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then it'll be real easy. We just wrap it up from there.
So, I mean, I guess the question is, what would it take to talk to Rotan? I mean, I don't know. City.
Call the mayor.
Mayor to mayor.
I mean, just talk to him about possible and talk to
Well,
him.
my understanding is Rotan's had a curfew and it's just never been enforced.
Yeah, because of the same reason, like you said, I mean, the sheriff's office can't enforce it.
No city.
Yeah.
But
So-
for both cities to approach the commissioners would be a very good idea.
There's a good.
Well, and if you publicize that, making everyone aware of the city ordinance that is going to be in place, has been in place but not enforced, to make an awareness of it where it's not.
No, if commissioners decide to do that ordinance, it will be enforced. I would highly encourage it to be done. And there are several different tools that can be used to be done through the JP's court.
You write mommy and daddy enough tickets, they're gonna make sure your
That's that
kids
judgment
is
part
gonna be
I was
home.
talking about.
So there's enough ways to put teeth into it. Yes, sir, it's effective, because I did approach the county attorney about dual sworn officers, and that just leads us to real liability issues. So actually going through the commissioner's court and having them adopt the ordinance would be the most simple way of getting something done. And I highly encourage that.
Guys, I'm gonna say this, part of the issue continue to get worse, and I realize funds are getting short, but when you don't have a PD to help, that's kind of a whole other deal, and then you're tying the arms of the sheriff, you can't put enough in. And I'm not saying drugs aren't a problem everywhere, but you look in Hamlin, Anson, even the small Holly, they've got a PD so they can work together. Well, the sheriff can't do, the police can do, but we don't have that, so there's part of the problem right there.
Oh, yeah.
Overreach.
So as far as like I was saying, I mean, we were talking about when you say just call you. I mean, those neighborhood watch groups, they have, you will see suspicious activity, call this number, or Crime Stoppers. I mean, is there a way to create in a way, Crime Stoppers number or a community watch number for the?
Neighborhood watch is neighborhood driven. In other words, if the neighborhood wants to do it, and we support it 100%. But it has to be those neighbors. And we would facilitate that to the best of our ability.
Okay. So I'm still getting back to this. Okay, so because we're starting to talk kind of in a way circles, but go on, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think we've had some really good ideas.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be sometime real soon, let everybody absorb this and come back maybe with a plan.
Okay.
And I'm just saying your plan may differ now, but that'll at least narrow it down to, I think, where you want.
Yeah, I mean, because we can all kind of tackle certain things. I mean, I know Eli can go ahead and call Rotan probably as soon as we walk out, and
On the 12th of August, we'll have it on our agenda to look at it, see if it's there, if it's not there, well, it'll be there.
yeah. And so, I mean, it's, but I agree, we can go out, we can stem on it, stew on it, come back, kind of talk about, plans. I guess we can research the Celebrate Recovery. What I'm trying to say is that, instead of all of stew, maybe some of us can kind of talk amongst each other about working on one, what it takes to implement one, what it takes to implement another thing, so that we can kind of have a similar, plan and say, yes, this looks great.
I mean, you got the courthouse here, we can kind of get together and talk about maybe our own plan, what I'm saying, with you guys.
All right.
I know there's a Celebrate Recovery group in Abilene that a friend of ours' son is involved with. And I'd be glad to reach out to him and get some information and coordinate with you to share that. I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and we can, kind of create a semi-budget for something like that. What does it think we need to present to the court? Because like you say, we need to kind of assume.
Randomly, I mean, just in general, how many people you have that would be candidates for Celebrate Recovery? Do we know that? Do we have a clue in this county, in this town? I mean, I know they've done it. They're not currently doing it, but they did it in Sweetwater for several years. It was really.
I would say on the probation list is probably about 40. Those on parole, probably not real good candidates because they have other alternatives, but probation, I'm not sure how many are on juvenile probation, but adult probation, though, we got about that number.
I'll start to say, we put anywhere from 10 to 12 almost every month. So, I mean, it's a number that's not shrinking.
Yeah, yeah.
You have plenty supply of candidates coming in, yes, sir.
That long-term probation or is it short-term? Short-term.
Because usually if they mess up short-term, then it doesn't matter because the other.
I'd rather start with a misdemeanor than I would the felony.
What is short-term, 6 months, a year?
Less than a year.
Yeah, just anything less than, yes, but yeah, short-term would be, most of them are 6 months. Usually you see what's gonna happen within 6 months, they'll quit reporting, or do something else or whatever.
And then, discussing the child aspect, what group do we need to kind of do as far as how we address, the safe environment and what we need to do to kind of help support, create a, Christian home for our kids that's safe, that can kind of give them the right direction, a safe environment for them to talk. Stacy already said, some of them already kind of do talk to her because they trust her. Now, what is it we need to create? I mean, I know we're having the youth,
We have a youth event next Tuesday and Wednesday evening.
I mean, things like that can kind of start building up, but, those are the kind of things. But then, as you said, after 3 o'clock at school, when school starts, what are we going to, do we work on plans and ideas and thoughts on what would be optimal and to me, what kind of budget do we want to think? So if we want to go and get some money from the courthouse or from the county and present, hey, say the hub, I want $10,000 to kind of create, educational opportunities and food for these kids and activities. This is what I feel like will help run it. I'm just using it as an example, but
That's what we did with,
yeah.
Tanner, do you know if any of the big prisons have like trustee groups that go out and speak. And COVID may have put a wrench in that.
They stopped that program when they ran into shortages of officers to transport. That's why it stopped.
Right now, TDCJ is hurting badly, more than regular law enforcement agencies for officers.
They just don't have enough officers to bring them out.
But I mean, we can start off with even y'all just coming and talking about offenses. And I mean, I can see you've got stuff for demonstration. I mean, you could do a dog demonstration for them.
There, that's why he's here.
I mean, that's exactly those kind of things, that could probably, I'd imagine he could scare him a little bit, even though right now he doesn't look good. But sometimes now he does.
Oh, let me promise you, as bad as his tail is, I can tell you his bite is worse.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for a volunteer in a little bit if anybody wants to test it
I
out.
think Judge Holt wants to do that.
No, I need my judge's arm, especially his right arm for a while.
You just need his right arm, not
I
his
didn't
left.
mean to hurt your feelings.
You don't have to give you a hard time.
I mean, we can start off small, like doing simple presentations, things like that. I know I had done one for the school with the sheriff's department, a couple of years ago. I did, the chemical aspects on the brain and drugs, and they did the, what are the effects of if you get caught? This is the.
So before I left Snyder's, I started going to the school because they eased up on the COVID stuff. And so I would go to, I think the last time I went to 8 classrooms. And I just talked to them for about 20 minutes of just about, how to identify an officer. That's what I targeted, to the young ones. I was like, okay, how can you tell that that's a real police officer? I was like, when I went through, I was like, they have a badge, they have a patch, and what do you do if you find a person that you don't believe is an officer? I was like, you find a teacher, you find your parents. And so, I used to do that just on my volunteer time.
Yeah.
And currently, the state law under the CIT requires the students to have some access, some education to have dealing with the police, which is something we need to do more. And that's what Tanner's going to be doing.
And so if y'all give me enough advancement so I can make sure all my kids are looked after, I have no problem coming and talking to these kids.
Yeah.
Because that's one reason why I got into law enforcement was because one of the career days back when, me and Heather was in high school.
Yeah.
I saw how cool it was to, those dogs listening to that officer. And I was like, I want to do that.
Well, and maybe things like that, you come in to visit with them to say, hey, he really is this guy. When you meet him on this side of the handcuffs or the collar, how do I know he was behind?
I mean, even in my aspect, missing, getting with the school going on certain days, just a monthly. Coming in, you come into the school. When it starts each month, you're talking with Misty and coming in visiting one class a month and making your presence known in the hallway.
That's going to happen.
Yeah. So.
But I think if they start seeing that, hey, they're nice guys, they're good guys, we can come to him, and over time it'll build up. And if they see kind of the other side too, obviously they can't get the experience that I had of seeing the inmates come in like what we used to, but if they start to put that together at an early age, that part's going to take time to build up to where it doesn't get to the stories like what you get told. But
I have access to any type of mental health drug. I've got people from A&M that come out. We just got to schedule it, figure out what we want to talk about. We've got, and that don't really cost anything.
And to me, that's another thing is, your program in of itself, it's kind of underutilized. 4-H in of itself is, and to me, from my aspect, because I'm trying to start the rifle program, is parents not thinking it's your job. That's what
That's
it's your job.
Problem on all this.
It's not. It's
the same people.
It's not
any help.
You are supposed to be a facilitator. It's not your job to run all the programs. It's the volunteer help. It's those people that really, if people want to make a difference, they got to help and do volunteer work. And, if their kids are there, they can be there. And so that's going to be the biggest thing is.
We just don't need something set up that's just going to end up being a babysitting period.
That's it, yes.
And that's what happens in a lot of this stuff around here is they see it as something good, but it also gives them a time that they don't have to have their kids, which turns into a parent problem.
Yeah. And so, it almost needs to be like a family endeavor, which is what we're trying to do.
Could you watch my child while I go to AA?
Or can you watch my child while I go get high? I have that hour to hour and a half of not having to deal with my kid, so I can actually enjoy my high, or however they say it.
So what we'll do is stem out, I guess. I'm gonna throw Brandon under the bus just because, as far as the Celebrate Recovery, if you want to work with, kind of help me out on that.
Sarah said she contacts.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit Darren up and put him on the spot so he knows more than I do.
There we go. Like the four of us will kind of start looking into that aspect. I mean, we'll contact anybody that, and I'm gonna, if you haven't put your email on there or signed on, I'll work on setting up a group email so that we can all kind of communicate and kind of say, this is where we're at. It's hard to set a date for me, but let's see. We can kind of look at the other aspect is the youth endeavors. I kind of think once y'all too, since y'all deal with youth, and Carter, kind of just y'all talking about, what are some ideas, and everybody else can kind of think of things too. But what other kind of things and education opportunities, maybe get with Tanner, Sheriff Ford, and kind of talk about things. We'll probably, we'll all communicate, but kind of starting to create a plan is my thing. Is we, if only a handful of us create a plan, then we all come to, this is the plan. Oh, hey, can you add this? What about this? What about this? And then this is kind of what we see as our budget, and we can kind of progress on with that. We already got, the mayor's kind of working on the,
When is y'all's next commissioner's court? The 9th?
And the more of y'all that can show up to that is also beneficial as well,
What
or at
time?
least view it online.
Is it at 9 a.m.?
Bring some popcorn. But we do a deal through the A&M system, and it's funny, this is a problem that's on the top of every one of our deals is teen drug use and then mental health in communities. That's on every county throughout the state of Texas right now. So, that came in as the number one. So it's everywhere. It's not
That's true.
it's not just a,
Mental health too.
yeah, that surprised me that ranks so high, but it was.
Mental health is something when I got into the role I was at, I didn't expect to have to deal with. And
Most states like that.
it is a very big challenge and a big problem. And I can say COVID hadn't helped much with it, but.
No, it's gotten worse since that's transpired.
These are challenges in life, and we can rise up to the occasion, and we can work on it all together and, come up with solutions. And they're not going to be perfect. Nothing's perfect at first, but we can start shooting for those small successes. I really liked how Brandon said our success needs to be measured by that one person.
Yeah.
Because if we can get more than one, yay. But if we get one person out of this, or a family with parents and kids, if we get that, whatever we get, we're going to take it. And then as you get success, you get more success, and we keep pushing forward.
Out of my experience with Teen Challenge and AA, you're only going to get 1 out of 10 anyways.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Honestly, you're lucky if you get 1 out of 10.
It's a win. It's
And
better than.
it's still a win. I'm just.
If you get that, and that's what we need to think. If we get that 1 out of 10 kid, that's a whole lot better than the 10 out of 10 that wasn't going to happen. So we're going to make a difference in someone's life, and that's what we need to look for. So I kind of think we aim in those directions. Does everybody sound good on that? Now, as far as a follow-up,
I would suggest we continue with a monthly meeting, if not bi-weekly meetings. I know everybody has busy
And
schedules.
if you didn't get that email list, everybody can say yea or nay. Can be
Yeah.
too, though.
Okay. All right, so we'll shoot.
If our boss will let us take off half
So
day.
you want them 5:30 on Fridays, is that what you're saying?
Oh, no.
So we'll aim for, I mean, tentatively, I mean, what are we, I mean. I'm trying to.
Lady Irwin.
Yeah.
What did you say?
It's a Lady Irwin over there.
Yeah. Is it Vito?
Lucas.
Lucas, okay.
Yes, you're in trouble.
I want to see that.
Sarah's just a dog.
I think he's a dog person.
How does
Yeah, I'm
August
attracted to her.
28th look for everybody right now? I mean, exactly a month.
Let Heather be your mom.
28th.
Saturday.
Is it a Saturday?
He would not hurt.
Oh,
Oh, you're really trying to blow this
26th.
up.
Sorry, August 26th. Sorry.
You would be surprised how strong I am.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Fine for-
Yeah, 2 o'clock, kind of the same thing, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
What day?
August 26th.
When school started.
Might have started by then.
Oh, we're gonna have to find, can we meet at the courthouse? It's okay.
I think we can meet at the co-op if y'all want to.
Yeah.
17.
That's why, you made me think, and I really, yes, that's a good point. So how about we aim for like the courthouse lounge? Kinda, what do you call that room?
Wait.
Coffee room.
Coffee room? Courthouse coffee room?
No, wait.
You got nothing with it. Lost. You don't turn loose that easily, so that's why you don't want to volunteer for that.
Yeah. Well, sometimes he's stubborn, so.
You want to put that red man suit and no, and heck no.
Thank you.
Close. Getting too close to the back of my arm.
That was cool. Does it, can you feel it? It's just not as bad, I guess.
Oh, you feel like, so like, look at that. When I would train with the K9 unit and all under my arms and scratches.
Does he like to play with these?
Bottles, yes, that's
Okay.
what he wants.
Can we have it to play with?
Yeah.
Is it really bad?
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha.
I would have gone from such smart.
I'd love to pet him, I didn't know if it was okay or.
Yeah, you touch it.
Okay.
He won't close.
Hey, Lucas. Hey.
Big guy.
You want to see how strong he is? Yes.
Yes.
Hold on to this.
Me?
Yeah. And I can let him grab it.
Will he do it? How old is he?
He's about 10.
Had to say, he's got a lot of white on his muzzle.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You walked up and down.
He is strong.
They're gonna show up first or before.
Yes.
That's how it is. I've been through programs like that and I've seen.
Oh, she's tiny. Yeah.
Oh, drags her around.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, sir.
Is he trying to untie the knot?
When he's trying to eat it.
Oh, I was telling Dallas, he's trying to untie that knot.
He'll tear it
Yeah.
apart.
This is a big deal.
Yeah. You know those thick ropes that you can get a G-board?
Yeah.
He can shoot through that multiple times.
It is a commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then you're trying to block him.
So.
Ooh, nose, Crystal.
There's a reason I was here, I guess.
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah, all right.
I met a long time ago at the pizza, so.
Well, like you did, I was trying to.
Sounds good. Tommy told me.
You give you a warning?
Yeah, coffee.
So pretty.
That's what he wants.
What?
They just introduced us.
That's where their biggest parade drive comes
This is
into.
new, fairly new too. And, we're trying to have.
He's like, Dad, can we rest?
So are those the only dogs that do
Vacation or.
canine?
Should that, but-
So I went to a narcotics clinic. So I was in National Narcotic Detective Dog Association. And so I qualified for the past 5 years. And we would have qualifications / competitions. We have 120 dogs.
Well, you have the moments you get better and then you're like,
He's been.
And we would do, the first half was classes, trainings, and certs. So certified.
He wasn't gonna make it.
But then the last 2 days was competitions.
That's why we're jumping back and forth with our things.
And
Pushing them against.
of course, the bite dogs, which is no purpose dogs,
That helps out.
mainly you see
He's
is
the church.
a Belgian Malinois or a German Shepherd.
Oh, I thought he was a German Shepherd.
No, he's a Belgian Malinois.
Man at the same time.
But it's just,
Oh, a what?
it's Belgian Malinois.
I've never heard of that.
He's from Holland.
Well,
He has his own passport.
He was what?
I say he's from Holland and he has a passport.
First time for a long time until they got out. Now there's a relationship.
What do you want to do?
I was just thinking, those are weird words for him to sit down.
Tell them a story on camera. So we know there is hope.
you're tearing it up. Look
He
at
was
you.
little. He was sitting there. The teacher came over to Tanner. So Tanner reached over and grabbed her quarter. The teacher asked him, Tanner, so why did you steal that quarter from us? I lost it.
There's hope for everybody.
Yeah, there's hope for everybody.
Like, where'd she go? Where'd she go?
Yeah, I remember that because it was Randall Putnam who I took a quarter.
I never got swatted.
I got him weekly for a while
Okay.
with Roy Brown.
Courtney sure did get some swats too.
How we
Yeah,
sustain it. You know, everybody started like a blaze and how we're gonna continue. What do we look like in 3 years?
On the beach yesterday.
I think we can get something rolling.
I talked to your dad yesterday.
Oh, yeah, we just got back Sunday, but they're leaving
Found out
today.
or moved away or.
Courtney and Stormy and them.
It's just like, I'm ready for it now.
Yeah, you got them all now.
He wants that ball.
you're a friendly butt.
Well, his ears are sticking out, so that's more of that friendly look.
Yeah.
And now he's gonna follow you until you give him that
He's
buck.
saying, please give me the bottle.
He loves
Sorry that I had to come by, but
It's funny.
I'd already
Listen,
talked with Carl about the same issues, but at the same time, I'm
And I
talking to
can
you.
make him
We're gonna
search.
start
I can make him jump
He's
over
nowhere near
things,
the
jump onto things.
issues that
Really.
Rotan is.
Tell them to
There is
search.
some.
Well,
He don't search people. That's a violation
I
of
will-
the Fourth Amendment right, man.
I will work on anything.
Tell them to
I
search.
mean, junk vehicles, trash, drugs, I don't care.
So I made a impression on our city manager. He believes the.
Well, and at the same time, you know.
The plastic bottles over there.
Some
Yeah,
people
no,
always.
there's a distraction going on right now.
I said, that man extended himself and got in trouble, so we're gonna do something over here. We're gonna, on a case-by-case basis, I've got pins over here, we're gonna find some kind of solution. I don't want people calling and jumping on him or y'all saying, and nobody trying, at least trying.
Yeah.
So,
He's allowed to have bottles, huh?
That hasn't been, that had been
Dispatch
the
room
problem before.
and dispatch from Snyder room.
we'll find something.
They would actually keep bottles just for him.
Just for him.
That's good.
Yeah, keep a basket of bottles.
Yep.
Tell him,
So I used to tell him, I was
Next
like,
time
you
come
don't
up here
realize
and
how much
tell him
pain that
to
is whenever I'm searching.
bring a
this
list for that.
shit. 'Cause it's- it gets
We'll fix
so
it.
bad.
We'll fix it. Go to City Hall, maybe.
And then he's.
If you don't mind yelling
Playtime.
at Rotan, because I would like that curfew to be in effect.
Dad, that's one.
We'll look ours up. I know we got one. We just have to look it up. If not, we'll do a new one. We'll be
Well,
more specific.
And something else, the judge will be citing them based
He
on
is
that.
happy.
And it's, and
He's got a good ass.
you can tell when the kids are because he's coming from partying. He's just hanging out, messing around.
I
He
will
knows.
tell you the corpus ordinance is perfect because it's been in existence since World War II. It has been through constitutional challenges, and the exceptions are church, work, and with their parents. So English particular things.
I'm not putting that thing.
Now, and they have a daytime curfew in addition to a nighttime curfew. The schools and section, you can't be out on the streets in Corpus from 9 to 2. You have to be at home.
No.
So those little things, that, yeah, they're kicked out of school and they're just running around the streets. There's other ways of doing that.
I don't remember how that falls in here, but
No, no.
I remember when I was in school, if I didn't go to school because I was a little bit sick, didn't want to go to school, then it got better towards the day.